The Great Australian Road Trip has had something of a resurgence in recent years, with messages to holiday at home and support local well received by Aussies. And if you ask us, the best companion for a cross-country road trip, whether it's for work or for pleasure, is a sturdy, stoic car capable of tackling some tricky terrain. So, whether you're on a budget, on a work site, need to tow, or just want to flex on the school run, these are our category-winning off-roaders from the 2024 Drive Car of the Year Awards. These off-road capable cars impressed Drive Car of the Year judges so much they won their individual categories. Our winners include the Best Off-Road SUV under $80,000, the Ford Everest Sport V6, which is fast becoming the go-to car for adventurous Aussie families, the Best Dual Cab Ute under $50,000, the Ssangyong Musso Ultimate XLV, an unfairly overlooked ute that proves you can have everything on the menu without spending a fortune. Our Best Dual Cab Ute over $50,000, the Ford Ranger Wildtrak V6, the ute that will take you from the worksite to the campsite and tackle the school run in between. And finally, our Best Luxury Off-Road SUV under $150,000, the Land Rover Defender 110 D300, an off-roader that's so nice you almost won't want to get it dirty. Almost. Off-road SUVs thrive in the Australian outback and, let's be honest, in the Australian suburbs too. And these days, they kind of have to be good at both. Our pick of a very good bunch is this car, the Ford Everest. And Trent, do you want to tell us a little bit more about why it won its category, Best Off-Road SUV under $80,000?
That's right, no easy feat, tough category, Suze. And you mentioned that Aussies love driving these around town. We're often heard, and you'll read at Drive, us saying to people, please use them as the manufacturer intended. Take them off the road, let them off the leash. But the reality is Australians love driving these every day. They have become family vehicles. However, the reason this is our pick in this segment is because there is no compromise. This is particularly good on-road. It's particularly good off-road. And the bad old days where a good off-roader was horrible to drive on-road, long gone. Ford Everest is a fantastic thing. And on the subject of driving, let's get behind the wheel.
This is a really interesting category in Drive Car of the Year because it's one of those ones that has a lot of different inputs and a lot of different requirements, but also has a price barrier there that you cannot go over. So for a four-wheel drive, big wagon that can seat 7, do all sorts of things, you're not looking at the big names like Patrol or Land Cruiser or that sort of thing. This is a little bit more budget conscious, but at the same time, highly demanding in terms of what you want to get out of the car. And this Ford Everest, well, it's a really impressive vehicle overall, and all of the judges agreed, in fact, that it really does step up the game in a lot of respects, similar to how the Ranger has stepped up the game in the ute segment. This Everest is really impressive in a lot of areas. And one important area, of course, is off-road performance. We're currently in a sport specification model with the diesel V6, and we do have the 20-inch wheels, which you can step away from as a no-cost option. But even so, we're driving some pretty tough tracks today, and this Everest is doing really well. There's an off-road traction control system with selectable modes that helps to tailor the traction control response. But of course, you've also got a locking rear differential, a really good 360-degree camera actually, which helps with just placing the car in some tricky positions off-road. But the coil-sprung rear suspension feels nice and supple. There's a bit of balance between the front and the rear. And it just can crawl nice and slowly through some challenges here. Considering how good this car is on-road as a family vehicle, doing the daycare drop-offs or the school drop-offs, all that sort of thing, this thing is a real weapon off-road at the same time.
Best off-road SUV under $80,000. The Drive Car of the Year judges agree that it is the Ford Everest. And realistically, at this price point, what is not to like? There's a lot of clever technology at play here. For example, the trailer and towing technology that you access here through the infotainment screen, which trickles down from models overseas like the Ford F-150. Very useful, very safe, and very easy to use. Technology throughout the rest of the vehicle is really good, but the other thing too is that it's value-packed and it's comfortable. This is a fantastic road trip vehicle, especially for a family when you're on your way to an off-road destination. The Everest does everything effortlessly.
A two-time category winner at the Drive Car of the Year Awards, the reborn Land Rover Defender managed to build on its storied pedigree to become a technological leader in its segment. But don't let its looks fool you. This car has serious off-road chops, which is why it won our Best Luxury Off-Road SUV under $150,000 category. Trent, why do judges continually love this car?
This new Defender is simply as good as it gets off-road, and it has no peer. It's remarkably comfortable on-road, incredibly luxurious, and the point you made there about the luxurious looks, do not let them fool you. This is as good as this segment gets off-road. It's why it's our pick, and in fact, let's take a look at it performing off-road.
The current generation Land Rover Defender came out back in 2020, so 4 years ago, which is a long time in terms of car development, but when you're driving it, doesn't feel old. It still really feels at the top of its game and one of the best off-road four-wheel drives that money can buy at the moment. And it stood out for a bunch of reasons in this category for Drive Car of the Year. Judges spoke about how good it is off-road. It's because it's got things like height adjustable air suspension that's all cross-linked and really stable off-road. It's got amazing traction control systems, active differentials, and it all works together in this symphony that makes it frankly really good off-road. I would say it is the best in the segment, and all of the Drive judges agreed with me on that one. And for someone who perhaps isn't the most advanced or experienced four-wheel driver, the car feels really approachable to drive off-road as well. You've got fantastic cameras, a great sense of confidence from behind the wheel because the car feels stable and grippy at all times, and you can crawl at a nice low speed and get through some really challenging technical terrain without really raising a sweat. The air suspension, fantastic off-road, but also fantastic on-road. And just the combination of the interior, the refinement, the powertrains, it makes a vehicle just that feels like it can do just about anything you ask of it.
If you jumped straight in a Land Rover Defender and all you ever did was drive it around town, you could be forgiven for underestimating how capable this is off-road, because this is, after all, first and foremost, a legendary off-roader with a legendary badge. However, it's also incredibly capable around town. Smooth, rides beautifully even over the worst surfaces, and the Drive Car of the Year judges enjoyed the visibility and how enjoyable this is to drive. Quintessential off-roader, but also very impressive around town. When we head into any of our gnarly off-road challenges, there's one four-wheel drive that the Drive Car of the Year judges want to be behind the wheel of more than any other, and it's this one. It's the new Land Rover Defender. This is a fantastic off-road vehicle, which is exactly what judges expect of anything that's got a Land Rover badge and a Defender badge. However, Land Rover argued for years before the release of this vehicle that it needed to move the game forward in terms of on-road driving, cabin ergonomics and quality, luxury and comfort. It has done all of those things without losing any of its capability off-road. There's no doubt among the Drive Car of the Year judging team that this is the best off-road vehicle in its category.
There is no more hotly contested battleground than the Australian Ute sales race, and as manufacturers continue to push the boundaries of what utility actually means, the apex predator to beat is last year's overall Drive Car of the Year winner, the Ford Ranger, and that's why it's our best dual cab ute over $50,000. Trent, we keep loving this car. Tell us what judges thought about it this year.
Yeah, what's not to like? I mean, this has set the standard for the dual cab segment since its release. You made a really good point there about the sales race, because who'd have thought 20 years ago Ranger and Hilux would have been at the top of the sales charts. Medium SUVs are popular, but they're not as popular as these things. And I love what you said there about utility, because these used to be very compromised work vehicles that people would buy and drive every day because they had to. Now they are default family vehicles that get used on the weekend as much as they do for work Monday to Friday, and we think the Ford Ranger is unequivocally the best all-rounder in this segment. Let's take a look first at the cabin, because that is where most people, when they buy one, are spending all of their time. Drive Car of the Year judges mention it frequently when we're testing these vehicles, and it's not just a catchphrase. The Ford Ranger was designed in Australia by Australians largely and for Australian buyers, and it shows in every facet of the Ranger when you test it on-road or off-road. There's a real clever suite of safety technology throughout this vehicle. It's comfortable, it's practical, it is comfortably at the head of the dual cab class and has been since it was released, and it is unequivocally the best dual cab that you can buy right now in Australia.
This new generation Ford Ranger dominated Drive Car of the Year when it first arrived last year, and it's the same story again this year. Although there have been some updates in other competitors and some new models thrown into the mix as well, this Ranger still sits a step above every other ute out there in the segment. When you're talking about off-roading, driving tracks like we are on now, this Ranger feels really good. You've got a selection of driving modes which really helps tailor the off-road traction control system, but you've also got good suspension and a locking rear differential there. The Ranger will be held back in the same places where all other four-wheel drive utes are. Things like wheelbase being quite long, maybe hitting side steps and that sort of thing. That is typical of all four-wheel drive utes. But what this Ranger does seem to do is manage the best out of all of that. Plus, it's got nice healthy payloads, a 3.5 ton towing capability, and fantastic diesel engines to choose from. This one we're driving at the moment is the 3-litre diesel V6 and is definitely the pick of our range for on-road and off-road driving. And the combination of everything leaves this Ranger feeling like it can do a bit of everything, and that's what a four-wheel drive ute really is, a jack of all trades for around town driving during the week. It might be the work vehicle during the week as well, but also going off and exploring, doing some off-roading on weekends and holidays. This Ranger does feel like it's best suited to be the best at all of those disciplines. And when you consider all of those things, this Ranger really feels like it is the best suited to be a real standout, I think, across all of those disciplines.
Affordable dual cab utes are increasingly something of a rare breed. Thankfully, the Ssangyong Musso exists, and it allows you to have everything on the menu for under 50k with some change. That's why it won our Best Dual Cab Ute under $50,000 category for 2024. And Trent, even though it is affordable, you're not going to compromise when you buy this car. How come?
You're absolutely not going to compromise, Suze, and the judges love the Ssangyong Musso. It's something of a surprise. We probably went in not expecting it to be as strong as it was, but this is value packed. You get an excellent warranty. It's really good to drive. It rides well unladen, which not all of the dual cabs do. This does do that. Good quality interior, and as you said, really cost effective in terms of buying it, but also running costs. The other thing that's really interesting to note about the Ssangyong Musso is that a few years ago, we would have said to you, if you're buying with this sort of budget in mind, you have to look at something like a Mitsubishi Triton because it was really the price leader. What Ssangyong's done is come in and set the example. If you're wondering why we keep saying that Kia and Hyundai need a dual cab, Ssangyong Musso. When it comes to assessing the Ssangyong Musso for its off-road capability, the qualities that this vehicle possesses start right here inside the cabin. This is value packed, and we keep saying, you'll hear Drive Car of the Year judges saying that you have to do a lot of driving on-road before you ever get to your off-road driving obstacles. This is value packed across the range. For example, these huge 12.3-inch screens, two of them, they're standard across the entire Musso range, but everything feels like it's a specification grade above where its price is positioned. So when it comes to a value packed dual cab that you're looking to take off-road and do some touring in, you cannot go past the new Ssangyong Musso.
When you're looking at off-road performance, the Musso isn't too bad. It's definitely not right at the top of the list in terms of straight off-road capability. It's lacking a little bit in terms of ground clearance, but quite often you can drive around it actually, and you do have good traction control systems on offer here. So there's an auto locking rear diff, and you can feel that come into action sometimes when you're taking on some harder challenges. And the car is surprisingly capable as long as you don't overstep those ground clearance limits there. The Musso comes with a variety of wheelbases, so you can opt for a shorter wheelbase with a smaller tub. That's got better off-road clearance overall. But we also do have something of a rarity in the dual cab ute segment, and that is a coil sprung rear end. And it does feel good in this kind of off-road driving. Nice and supple, but also fairly stable. And when you consider the under $50,000 limitation of this category, the Musso really does feel like the best value and the best choice overall. It's good off-road, but it's also got great practicality, and it's surprisingly comfortable and refined in other areas as well. So if you aren't considering one, I reckon you definitely should.
No matter which one of these cars you choose, rest assured you'll be well taken care of both around town and off the beaten track. And if you want to learn even more about what they're capable of, head to Drive.com.au.